Okay, thank you guys both. Let's jump into our first question. I really like asking this one because I feel like it's something that a lot of readers and listeners are curious about. What would you guys tell someone who knows very little about psychedelics but wants to invest in the space? What would be your advice for them, and what things would you want them to look out for? Whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
Maybe I'll start off. Yeah, clearly a great space. I think we probably all think to invest in, just given how potentially disruptive these treatments are going to be on the mental health space. I will say that for investors that are new to the space, do your homework. There are an awful lot of companies that have started in the last couple of years, up in the hundreds, I believe. It's hard to keep track of them all. And I'd really advise investors to do their homework on drug development. It's a lengthy process. It's complicated. It certainly varies quite significantly between different major markets, whether you're talking about North America or Europe. And given the amount of capital that's needed, I would back teams that have a track record in drug development, companies that are well capitalized, given how expensive drug development is, and given the ups and downs of the capital markets, and this sector's been pretty volatile. I'd focus on businesses that have a strong IP strategy. This is an emerging IP space, and given the amount of investment needed, IP is important. And finally, focus on companies that, at the end of the day, are focused on having differentiated offerings, so that when the market eventually forms here for these treatments, that those treatments can be competitive, given how many companies are working in the space.
I mean, I think Doug touches on all the high-level points. I guess there's a couple of things that I would sort of expand on. One is this is very much right now a drug development story for sure, but it's a slightly nuanced drug development story where we're looking at psychedelic-assisted therapies, and I won't belabor the point I made at the beginning. So it's going to look a little bit different. And what's really interesting about psychedelics is we live in a paradigm where, you know, I won't say the placebo effect, but the expectations around the experience actually have an effect on the therapeutic outcome. So people who have a good intention, who do the work and go into a setting for their psychedelic experience, seem to have better therapeutic outcomes. Now, what makes this interesting is, unlike most drugs where generally we don't talk about brands or anything along those lines, the expectation of the experience, the doctor, the therapist that are administering it are actually going to affect the therapeutic outcomes, at least based on the evidence we have today. So it's nuanced, it's different. So I think investors should be aware of that. I also think, you know, there's a couple of great investor lessons to be had recently. We can look at two drugs that looked very promising, esketamine, Spravato, as well as Zulresso, two products in the mental health space that got approval from the FDA that have generally floundered in terms of their success commercially, even though they work medically, because they didn't have the proper infrastructure to actually deliver this. You know, Zulresso is really expensive, it's a long time, and most hospitals didn't want to touch it. Esketamine, Spravato, also very interesting, more expensive than racemic ketamine, but a lot of promise. But again, because of the way it got approved, you know, it's struggled. Doesn't mean it's always going to struggle. It may get better from a business perspective, but there's a couple of good lenses on which to bring to this equation that I think can help inform people. And that's why at Field Trip, we're so dedicated to this integrated model, because we're building the commercialization engine for our own products as well, which is important. And then finally, you know, I'm a big believer that even though it's a drug development story right now, the impact of this psychedelic renaissance is going to quickly exceed drug development in mental health. There's going to be huge cultural, business, social, political impacts of everything that we're seeing right now. So, you know, the sky's the limit, but also be quite savvy, right? It's very early innings. If I was going to analogize it to a baseball game, it's like, we're not even in the first inning. We're probably still in the batter's box, so to speak, before the game has started. So be patient. And then, like Doug said, do your homework, invest in teams with a track record where IP is well established and clearly understood. And I think those are the best pieces of advice to move forward with.